Hi there, my name is Andy Hollis. I'm with Grassroots Motorsports magazine, and we're going to tell you today how to do your own tire testing, much in the way that we do it for the magazine. Step one is obviously getting the tires, making sure that you've got the right tires in hand well in advance of the test day that you're going to do it, and make sure obviously that you've got the right size. Always check the manufacture date on those tires as well. Make sure that they are relatively fresh and that somebody didn't send you a bunch of old tires. Once you have your tires in hand, you're obviously going to need to get those mounted on wheels. Make sure that your wheels, in fact, do fit your car. We've had experiences in the past where we had extra wheels and they just didn't quite fit on the car due to some brake interference. So make sure you've got the right wheels and make sure that they're all the same size, the same offset, and preferably the same weight, although that's not quite as critical. But always want to eliminate variables from the test so there's no influence one way or the other from an outside source other than the performance of the tires themselves. That's what we're looking for. When we mount the tires, we always balance them as well, because part of our process is to drive the tires on the car to and from the track to heat cycle them. So you want to make that a positive experience when you're on the highway and not have a bunch of vibration. You want to be able to feel the ride quality of the tire that it delivers to you when you're trying to evaluate it. Once you've got the tires mounted, you're going to need to assemble all your supplies for the track, which includes obviously a jack, a lug wrench or an impact gun to put the tires on and off the car. You're going to want to have a torque wrench in order to put the proper torque on the car. So make sure you have all of those tools together assembled ahead of time. The other thing you want to do is make sure that your car is prepared so that nothing happens to ruin your test day. One of the key pieces of equipment you're going to want to bring to the track is a data logger. Not just a lap timer, but something that records accelerative data on the car so that you can analyze where the performance differences are. It's one thing to know that this tire turns a better lap time than the other. It's another thing to know why that is and where that is on the track that it's delivering that extra performance. So you always want to be looking for those kinds of traits in the data logger that you select. The next step is watching the weather. It's always critical to have a reasonable weather condition that's similar to the kind of situation that you tend to compete or use your car in. So for example, if you tend to live in a southern climate, you want to do your testing on an average temperature day. If it's too cold, it's not going to reflect the same kind of performance you might get on a hot day. And then vice versa, if it's too hot, it may not get you the same kind of relative performance that you would on a cold day. So try to find a day that's relatively average on temperature. And then obviously you don't really want any precipitation to be occurring when you're doing your testing. So watch that weather and always try to have a bailout plan and a different day perhaps that you can do your testing. Another key factor with deriving maximum performance out of a tire is the correct optimal air pressure. Now with most of the tires we're running these days, the optimal air pressure is actually a zone where plus or minus 2 or 3 psi gives about the same performance. The feel may be a little different, but it's a pretty wide area that will deliver the same performance. So you don't have to be super exact with something like this. What we have found is that on our test vehicle, our primary test vehicle, that cold pressures in the 24-25 psi range with warm pressures around 28 to 30 deliver the best performance for most of the 200 treadwear tires that we've been testing lately. But you're going to need to do that sort of determination on your own vehicle through other methods. To learn more about optimal tire pressure setting, take a look at the video that's linked below. Once you've got all the tools assembled and you've got your tires ready to go, the next step that we always do is we heat cycle the tires. Now you can order your tires heat cycled if you get them from some of the vendors that offer that service, but we tend to do it ourselves. And what we do is we'll mount one set onto the car, drive it to the track about 45 minutes, take about 6 laps around the track at ever increasing pace, taking care not to slide the tire around, which may cause early graining, which reduces the performance of the tire. And then we'll drive home another 45 minutes and then take them off the car and let them rest at least 24 hours. What this does is it cures the rubber a little bit more and it will give you better performance, more consistent performance and longer performance out of that set of tires. So we want to do that. Some tires, in fact, will deliver a substantial bump in performance just from that first single heat cycle. So we have started doing that all the time and it makes a much more consistent test. As an alternative, if you don't have regular access to a track, at least put about 45 miles on the tires, and that will serve as a reasonable heat cycle. It's not perfect, but it helps. And if you can add to that some runs around some clover leaves or some additional work on the sidewall of the tire, not just to scrub it, but to get a little bit of heat into the sidewall and not just in the center of the tire. And it's not quite as good, but if you do it properly, it's pretty darn close. All right, so now you've got your tires well prepared and your car well prepared for test day. Hopefully the weather is good and you're on your way to the track. Once you get to the track, get everything assembled, get your tires out and ready, get your tools out and ready, get the car fueled up, and it's ready to go and do some testing. One of the most important things in doing tire testing is to have consistent driving. Once we're ready to go at the track, we typically take a 20-minute warm-up session. This both cleans the track off from overnight accumulation of dust as well as prepares the driver for some consistent performance. It's very important to have a consistent driver and a car that's warmed up and ready to go. If the driver is inconsistent, then the data that you acquire is not going to be nearly as valid. So you want a driver who's a good, solid driver who has a lot of laps at that particular track. When it comes time to do the actual tests, we like to do a warm-up lap followed by about 5 or 6 hard laps taken directly to the limit as soon as the tire comes in. Some tires you can feel are not quite up to temperature initially on that initial out lap, and they may take 2 laps before they come in. But once they come in, you want to press them hard, be as consistent as possible. You're not racing, you're not trying to get every last possible half a tenth out of it, but you want to be as close to the limit as you can throughout the entire session. After we do those 5 or 6 laps, we'll do a couple of cool downs just to let the brakes cool off. Again, we want our car to be in good condition for the next set. Once you've got data on that first set of tires, it's time to change to the next set. Always be very, very careful when you're swapping the tires around. Once the equipment's hot, it's very easy to break a stud or jam a lug nut, so you want to take extra care as you're taking the wheels and tires off of the car and putting the new ones back on. Also be very, very careful with your torque specs when everything is very hot. And obviously, watch your hands. Plenty of burn marks on the hands from many years of doing tire testing, so be careful with all of that stuff. During this time, it takes about 15-20 minutes to do that. That also allows the car itself to cool off a little bit in preparation for the next session. From here, we basically iterate through each set of tires that you're trying to test that day. Once you've gotten through all of the tires that you're trying to test, we'll rotate back to the very first tire and put those back on the car and do a final, what we call a bracket session, in order to determine whether or not conditions have changed or whether the driver has improved throughout the day. That final session hopefully turns a similar set of lap times to the very first one, and if so, we consider the data good. If not, you need to look at the data and figure out where along the lines did things change, and if so, you're going to want to keep the rotation of tires going. So if you're doing an A, B, C, A test, you might need to go A, B, C, A, B, C again until you finally get a bracketing situation where the final laps for that one particular tire were very similar to the ones that you did earlier. That lets you know that your data in between those is all very good and comparable. Once you've got good data, you need to then go back home after you've cleaned up for the day and make sure and take a look at that data and see, one, not just what the actual lap times are, but where the differences are. One of the things we like to do is for each of the tires that we do, we'll look for places where we didn't get everything on any single lap. Like, are there sections where in one particular case or another particular case we did a little better in a section or something like that? Especially if you're not someone who's very consistent. This will let you know what the potential of any particular tire was, not just what the specific lap time that you executed was. Once you've got all of that done for each of the tires, you're going to look for trends. One, which tires are quicker, which tires are not, but also which ones are more consistent or not. So for example, some tires, they'll do 1 or 2 really fast laps, they'll fall off half a second or so, and then maybe be consistent after that. Other tires will take a couple of laps to warm up, and then will be super consistent for 5, 6, 10, 12 laps in a row. You're looking for those kinds of trends in order to evaluate for your purposes what kind of tire it is that you want. Not just the fastest for a single lap. If you're someone who's doing endurance racing, who does track days and just wants to be able to have a lot of good consistent laps, a single hot, one and done tire isn't really going to serve your purposes. On the other hand, if you're somebody competing in time trials or autocross, you're going to want a tire that comes up to temp quick, delivers fast laps, and you don't really care what happens on lap 3 and 4. Obviously, testing tires is expensive and logistically complex, and so that's why we've done a lot of the homework for you in order to get you a ballpark starting place. We'd recommend that you look for our Ultimate Track Tire Guide on our website and take a look and see, based on your usage, if you're an autocrosser, you're looking for that quick warm-up, that best pace. If you're a track day guy, you're looking for some longevity as well as consistent performance. If you're a time trialer, you're similar to autocross, you want that quick warm-up, that ultimate pace. These are the traits that you want for each type of activity, and our guide will give you 2 or 3 alternatives that you can decide to use for your own testing program.
Support brands who support Grassroots Motorsports. Get your chemical solutions from CRC Industries. To learn more, visit crcindustries.com. Want to see more content like this? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. And for more information, visit us online at grassrootsmotorsports.com.